Welcome and thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. Talking about the world of Alzheimer's disease can be very scary, and even worse for those who have to work with and actually care for people who have the onset of Alzheimer's. Dementia is one of those scary things where people just blatantly forget what's going on in their world. It's estimated that more than 20 million people are affected with Alzheimer's disease, and the cost for treating or at least caring for that is an astounding $1 trillion. Amazing, a trillion with a T. Joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program today is author of the book Fight Alzheimer's with Vitamins and Antioxidants. He's joining us here on the program today to tell us what we can do to be able to help with some of the things that are out there that are helping treat people with Alzheimer's disease to actually perhaps slow down or even reverse the symptoms of Alzheimer's. I'd like to welcome to the Beyond 50 radio program today our guest, Kedar N. Prasad. Kedar, thank you for joining us here on the program today.
Thank you, Daniel. It's a great pleasure for me to be with you.
Now, as the Chief Scientific Officer at Premier Micronutrient Corporation with his Antioxidant Research Institute in Nevada, California, this must have been a passion for you to pursue. Tell us what started you on this journey.
Yes. When I was professor at the University of Colorado Medical School, we had a grant from the National Institute of Health on Alzheimer's disease using in a cell culture model where you study molecular biology. And I was also interested in nutrition, especially antioxidant, and we did perform some study on a cell culture model and found that the antioxidant, certain kind of antioxidant, can markedly reduce some of the risk factor that is causing the Alzheimer's disease. And as you mentioned, that this is a terrible disease. And among the people who are 65 years or older, this is the sixth major cause of the disease. And as you know, Daniel, that most of the Alzheimer's is acquired during your lifetime, and therefore one can do some things to reduce the possibility of developing Alzheimer's, and only about 5 to 10% are due to a family history. And even that one, that we don't have to wait for the symptoms of the disease which appear earlier. We have some strategies that can also reduce, at least delay the development of Alzheimer's in those individuals who have a family history of Alzheimer's.
Now, it's interesting to see something like this progress the way that it has to such astounding numbers. I mean, it's right there with all our autism,
Yeah.
And you have to wonder what's really going on out there in the world, and, how prevalent is it in the United States versus the rest of the world?
Yeah, I think rest of the world, for example, the only statistic I have is India. It is much less in other countries than, say, for example, in the United States. And another thing that we are detecting is that for some reasons, people can speculate about this, but some reasons, women are about twofold higher risk of developing dementia with and without Alzheimer's. As you know, that you can develop dementia without Alzheimer's disease, and so this is really a terrible problem. As you mentioned, the cost of taking care, the burden on the family is enormous, and if there are no strategy for prevention is developed, by 2015, CDC has estimated that 16 million people at least will have an actual disease. Some of them are undiagnosed, but at least the established Alzheimer's. So these are the very frightening statistics, and therefore we have to do something different to prevent or to delay, and as well as improve the current treatment of Alzheimer's. And we have developed some strategy which we will discuss as we go along.
Now, again, as I was saying, it seems to be at epidemic proportions. Do we really know what the cause of Alzheimer's is? Is there a direct correlation to lifestyle? What is it exactly that you've been able to discover?
Yeah, I mean, the diet and lifestyle is somewhere related to, for example, vitamin, micronutrient deficiency, consumption of high-fat cholesterol diet, cigarette smoking. these have been done in a survey type of a study. We call it epidemiology study, and have shown associated between a micronutrient deficiency, consumption of high fat, high cholesterol diet, and smoking have been linked to the Alzheimer's disease. But the real culprit that all these deficiency creates is that increase in production of free radicals in the brain and inflammation in the brain that contributes to the development. And this is one of the earliest events in the initiation of the Alzheimer's disease or dementia in general. And therefore, and there are many other, during the last decade of research, there are many other events, biochemical events, have been identified, have been observed in patients with the Alzheimer's disease. But these are late events. The earliest event occurs in increased what we call oxidative stress. And oxidative stress is the event when your endogenous antioxidant defense system is overwhelmed by free radicals. We call them oxidative stress. So one of the earliest events, biochemically speaking, there are 10 different events occurs in Alzheimer's disease, but one of the earliest events in increase in oxidative stress, and this has been demonstrated in an animal model as well as in human. And one of the strongest evidence comes from the people who have a family history of Alzheimer's disease and as yet has not developed any symptoms of dementia. And when they examined those people, they found that increased oxidative stress occurs compared to, say, normal individual. So even though a symptomatic individual has an increased level of oxidative stress, and therefore anything one can do to reduce the oxidative stress and inflammation would be a very important strategy for reducing the risk of developing Alzheimer, and when you combine with the standard care, improving the current management of Alzheimer's disease. That I will discuss the treatment part later on.
Mm-hmm. Now, give people an idea what happens physiologically to the brain in the case of the degeneration that actually occurs with Alzheimer's.
Yeah, that's very interesting. See, normally what happens that after the age of, people have estimated it in human, after the age of 20 years, normally 5 to 8% of your neurons are lost every 10 years. It's very interesting. People have estimated that. And then you can ask the questions, why this is the case? Why that a significant loss occurs? And the clinical symptoms of Alzheimer's disease appears when 70% of your neurons are lost because of this process. And then you can ask the questions that how come? Why not we develop earlier? But brain has a functional plasticity. In other words, they can function with a fewer neurons than, say, normal individuals. So that's why the disease clinically becomes detectable when 70% of neurons are gone. So you can ask question, why the neurons are dying? Well, brain has the highest level of unsaturated fatty acids. On the top of that, brain uses proportionally very high level of oxygen from the air. So what air we breathe, 20% of the oxygens are used by brain alone, even though it represents only 5% of the body weight. So the brain uses, for whatever the functional needs are, the brain needed excessive amount of oxygen, so much that 2% of the oxygen which are not used are leaks out from the mitochondria and generates billions of free radicals in the brain. And so you are generating in the brain normally very high level of free radicals, and unsaturated fatty acids, which are important for brain function, are very susceptible to damage by the free radicals. And that contributes. So the free radical, excessive amount of free radicals contributes to the degeneration of nerve cells, which occurs normally, but if in case you have a fat diet or you have a nutritional deficiency, then this process gets further aggravated, and then you see the Alzheimer's disease. So the question would be that how one can reduce the oxidative stress. This is really a challenging problem. An extensive amount of both animal and human studies have been performed to address this issue.
Now, oxidative stress and chronic inflammation seem to be the culprit, so it would be good for people to consider what they could do, especially in their diet and supplementation, so that they can prevent this from happening in the first place. So let's talk about the diet and what people would be actually having in their diet that would cause these things to be a regular occurrence.
Yeah, I think our approach has been twofold. One is of course, you must have a good diet in terms of a low in fat. You have a high, and high in fiber from fruits and vegetables. You also have a lifestyle of reduced stress. You also have a stop smoking. These are the good lifestyle recommendations that would decrease the risk of developing Alzheimer. There are some other environmental factors that have come into picture that, for example, prolonged exposure to aluminum. For example, some people may cook their food in an aluminum pot. That may not be a good idea because, at least in the experimental model, they have shown, and in the autopsy material, they find that Alzheimer people have a high level of aluminum and iron and copper, this kind of stuff. And also that is very interesting that prolonged use of electromagnetic field, like, we have a cell phone, and it is very important for communication, but prolonged use could be detrimental to brain functions, and they have been demonstrated that electrophysiologically brain function can be altered by prolonged exposure to electromagnetic field, which comes from the, say, for example, cell phone. And also the chronic intense noise has been also associated with increased risk of AD. So you can see that in the lifestyle and environment that factor, it is easy to implement it that could have impact on reducing the risk of Alzheimer's disease. However, that may not be sufficient. We also recommend that you take a supplemental antioxidant vitamin, which is extremely important together with the diet to have an impact on reducing the risk of Alzheimer and also improving the current management of Alzheimer in combination with the standard drug therapy. So let me talk to you that how one reduces oxidative stress. This has been a challenge for many people. Many studies have been performed. In my opinion, for example, our body has two parts of antioxidant system. As you know, Daniel, that one part is antioxidant enzymes represented by catalase, superoxide dismutase, and glutathione peroxidase. These are three major antioxidant enzymes. And these enzymes get decreased in the presence of high oxidative stress, such as found in Alzheimer's disease. That's one component of our antioxidant defense system. Another part of the antioxidant defense system in our body is the antioxidant chemicals. And antioxidant chemicals, some of them we take from the diet, like vitamin A, C, E, D. Some we take from our body makes it. For example, glutathione, coenzyme Q10, L-carnitine, alpha-lipoic acid. These are made by the body. And therefore, we have antioxidant chemicals. Some of them we take from diet. Some are made in our body. So in order to reduce optimally oxidative stress, I have proposed a new idea that you have to elevate both parts of the antioxidant system. And otherwise, it won't be very effective. And that has been shown clinically that that can't be done. And then how you do it? Well, what is happening that in order to increase the level of antioxidant enzyme, one way you can do it, which is important, is increase the activation of a gene or protein called nuclear transcriptional factor, or NRF2, NRF2, NRF2. They have to be activated. Without the activation of NRF2, you cannot increase the level of antioxidant enzyme. It is required. And how you activate the NRF2? You activate by free radicals, surprisingly, because that is your defense mechanism, endogenous mechanism. So anytime, like during exercise, you produce more free radicals, the NRF2 get activated and antioxidant enzymes becomes high, and they defend to a certain extent against oxidative damage. And so, but what happens in Alzheimer, or when you grow older, aging phenomenon, that NRF2, which is generally responsive to free radicals, becomes unresponsive. They cannot be activated by free radicals. And that's why in the presence of this NRF2 in Alzheimer's disease, you have very high oxidative stress observed in both animal model as well as in humans. So Daniel, you can ask question then, how one can activate NRF2 when their normal mechanism of activation is impaired in Alzheimer's disease? Well, we have found that certain antioxidants, and that's very important to know, certain antioxidants, for example, vitamin E, coenzyme Q10, and some, for example, curcumin, resveratrol. There are some antioxidants which can activate this NRF2 without the help of free radicals. And so now one can say that we can increase is it sufficient that you increase the level of antioxidant enzymes? No, because by doing that, you will be taking care of one part of the antioxidant. You have to also increase simultaneously dietary antioxidant as well as the level of endogenous or body-made antioxidant at the same time. So you have to increase antioxidant enzymes. At the same time, you have to also increase the antioxidant chemicals that are present in the body. And therefore, we have made a preparation of a mixture of antioxidant in a way that will achieve this goal. So now you can ask the question is, what has been done in the past? And this goal of enhancing the level of antioxidant enzyme and antioxidant chemical at the same time cannot, I emphasize, cannot be achieved by the use of a single antioxidant that has been used clinically in patients with Alzheimer's disease as well as in other neurodegenerative diseases. And the results of the single antioxidant has been extremely disappointing because it cannot, a single antioxidant cannot activate NRF2 as well as increase the level of antioxidant chemicals. Only a multiple micronutrient can do that, and that's why we have tried to do that.
So what has been effective in your research? You talk about antioxidants as one of the things, as well as partnering together with vitamins. What have you found to be effective, and what is the best delivery to the body for being able to absorb these so that they actually get in and do what they're supposed to do?
Yeah. This is some of the way we have prepared these ingredients, which have a standard antioxidant, the dietary and endogenous antioxidant. It has what you call omega-3 fatty acids, and so curcumin and resveratrol. But some of these, they are absorbed because people have detected, at least in the animal model, in the plasma, the level of, say, vitamin E or coenzyme Q10 when you take orally. And also, when the autopsy samples of brain was obtained from the patient with Alzheimer disease, they found that certain antioxidants that they used in a clinical study, they were elevated. So some of these antioxidants crosses blood-brain barrier effectively. For example, take an example of alpha-tocopherol. Alpha-tocopherol would not cross blood-brain barrier very effectively, even though they do and brain levels do increase, but not the sufficient amount. But if you use vitamin E succinate, which I was the first one to identify in 1982, is the most effective form of vitamin E because it is more soluble. Therefore, it can cross the blood-brain barrier more effectively than alpha-tocopherol, which is not soluble, and whose solubility is very poor. And so it is very important to remember that when you are trying to prepare a multiple vitamin preparations, then you consider these kind of issues and that what is the most effective form of vitamin E, for example, is. And another important issue is that the people ignore it, that we take into consideration, is that adding both beta carotene and vitamin A together. Most of the preparations that you will see in the marketplace either have a vitamin A or vitamin A from beta carotene. It is seldom has both beta carotene and as well as the vitamin A. And the reason we have, in my opinion, both is important because beta carotene, as you know, Daniel, is not only the precursor of vitamin A, which everybody knows it, but it can produce some functions in the cell that cannot be produced by vitamin A or vitamin E. For example, the beta carotene can convert a cancer cell like normal cell, but vitamin A would not do it. Mm-hmm. And so it is very important to remember some of these small things is important. Another very important consideration is that that you will see that most of the vitamin products that are available for brain or for general health, they always have a iron, copper, or manganese. Do you know why they should not be there? I'm sure you know that, Daniel, but probably most of the people don't know it. Mm-hmm. The reason, and we have avoided that, because iron, copper, manganese are very essential for your health. Deficiency can create all kind of disease. But slight excess of that iron, copper, and manganese can increase the risk of all kind of chronic diseases, from cancer to Alzheimer to Parkinsonism. And so the reason is that iron, copper, or manganese combines with vitamin C, which is present in your most of the vitamin preparation, interacts with vitamin C and generates excessive amounts of free radicals. As a matter of fact, in any laboratory of the world, if you want to study the effects of pure free radicals in a test tube, the one and only way you can produce free radicals that in test tube you add iron and vitamin C. It generates enormous amount of free radicals. So that's one reason why we don't add iron, copper recommend in any multiple vitamin preparation. Another reason is that in the presence of antioxidant, iron, copper, or manganese will be absorbed better than in the absence of it. And if it is absorbing better, then over a long period of time, it will increase the iron load of the body. An increase in iron load in your plasma or in brain can induce all kind of chronic brain diseases And therefore, we said, don't take any iron with supplement. Even a junk food will have enough iron for your body's need because it is a trace mineral, and therefore you don't need it. Another important distinction that we feel that the product that I have mentioned in the book is we don't add any heavy metal. For example, many preparations will add zirconium, vanadium, and molybdenum. And body has no method of excretion, removing them from our body. Once you take it, they stay inside. Same thing is true from iron, copper, or manganese. Once it gets in your body, it is not going to get out until you give blood donation or something like that. So they accumulate over long run period. If you are going to take a vitamin supplement and you commit yourself for the rest of the life, and therefore over a long period of time, these heavy metals can accumulate in your body and can cause damage to the brain functions.
It's also fascinating, and your book is so extensive where people have a clear vision and understanding about, Alzheimer's, the progression of it, how it affects a person. And, as they perhaps maybe become diagnosed, there are drug therapies that are generally suggested for people to follow to at least be able to slow down the progression. And my understanding is they're not as effective, but actually adding what you're talking about here perhaps in complement to what is suggested will actually achieve that.
That's exactly correct, Daniel. For example, right now, the best drugs that are available for patient is what we call the inhibitor of acetylcholinesterase. And the reason they are effective because they block the degradation of acetylcholine, which is the molecules or chemicals that stores memory, responsible for memory, storing, recalling. So cholinergic molecule is very important. So what this drug does is that in cholinergic neuron, they elevate the acetylcholine level, and therefore your memory is restored, or you start recalling more than you did before the treatment. But the problem is the following, that this drug or another drug which people have used, the antagonistic of glutamate, and any drug that you use that, they treat the symptoms, not the causes of the disease. And in order for these drugs to be effective, the neurons, cholinergic neurons, have to be alive. If they are dead, the drug cannot work. And that's the reason why these drugs are effective only for a short period of time. And after that, it has no effect because there are no neurons to respond to. And then the question is, why? So why neurons are dying in spite of the drug? Because in brain of Alzheimer disease, and they have demonstrated in an autopsy sample of the Alzheimer disease patient by the MRI, that the area that there is an increased oxidative stress, there is increased inflammation. So these drugs do not address the issue of increased oxidative stress and chronic inflammation. And therefore, neurons continue to die despite of the drug treatment because these drugs are not addressing it. Therefore, if you reduce the oxidative stress and inflammation in combination with a standard drug therapy, then you can take the advantage of the both worlds. You can reduce the progression of the disease, and your drug can last, effectiveness of drug can last much longer time than what we are observing today. So this is very important, and people are ignoring it. I don't know why, knowing fully well, I have failed to understand, knowing fully well that increased oxidative stress and chronic inflammation, there are hundreds of papers, Daniel, to show that not only in animal model but human also, these things are present in Alzheimer's disease. And if you know that these are toxic elements in your body, wouldn't you like to reduce it? But in the current therapeutic modality, these issues are not being considered, and therefore there is no effective treatment in terms of a treatment of this disease. Then you can ask questions that has there been any study on antioxidant in human? Well, human, say, Alzheimer's disease. And as I have mentioned in my book, there have been a few studies that shows individual. That's the problem. They have used vitamin E alone, curcumin alone, or B vitamins alone, or omega-3 fatty acid alone. And the result has been either no effect or very little effect. Because individual agent cannot activate or cannot elevate the level of antioxidant enzymes and the antioxidant chemicals in the body at the same time. So you can't do that. One agent can do that. And therefore, the result has been disappointing. Unfortunately, clinicians, even though they know it has been tried with one antioxidant, they think all antioxidants are no good for you. And they don't recommend patient any multiple vitamin or any kind of antioxidant in combination with the treatment, because they believe only on this kind of study they believe, but they have been tried just single agents. How can you, when you know that this is not sufficient to reduce oxidative stress, and therefore it is failure? And the next question you can ask that, has there been any study? I mean, this is very important. Somebody has asked questions. Mm-hmm. We lecture a lot of people, the consumers. They said, how do I know that this strategy is working? Have you any evidence?
Kedar, I actually have to. We got about a minute left here.
Okay.
So I wanted to kind of get the audience a little bit focused on where they can find your book, and is there a website where they can begin to follow up on this and do more?
The website. First, I will give you the website. It's called Brain, BRAIN, Brain Seva, SEVA.com. This is the website where you can obtain the product. And also the book can be obtained either from Amazon.com or from brainseva.com. Either one, they are available.
Well, Kedar, I want to thank you for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program. It looks like for a lot of things that seem to be hard for people to reverse or at least slow down, that there's a lot of promise there on the horizon, especially when it comes to a more natural approach to things.
Yes, I think I strongly believe, and I have written a lot of paper on this issue. And I thank you, Daniel, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you again for joining us here on the program today. Again, the book is Fight Alzheimer's Disease with Vitamins and Antioxidants. Our guest today, Kedar Prasad, joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program. You can also discover more by visiting us at beyond50radio.com. That is the number 50. You can also follow us on Twitter with hashtag Beyond50Radio. I'm Daniel Davis. Thank you for tuning in. You've been listening to the Beyond 50 radio program, and remember, live your day past halfway.